In this screencast, we are going to talk about percents, but more specifically finding the missing total or finding what number makes up the whole part of our equation. So if you look at the screen, you'll notice that this statement, 5 is 10% of what number, is a little bit different than what we've been looking at with the percent of a number, where we would say 10% of 5 is this. So we're going to walk through and talk about how you would figure this information out. And basically what we're going to do is we are going to use the idea of a percent proportion. And I'm going to write that on the board or on the screen. And basically a proportion is the same thing as an equivalent ratio. And you're going to see that as we work through the examples. So let's go ahead and take a look at the example that I had written on the previous screen. And it says 5 is 10% of what number? We are going to use the same equation every single time that we go to solve a problem like this. You're going to take two fraction bars and you're going to have the part over the whole is equal to the percent over 100. So the part over the whole are going to be your whole numbers, okay? So 5 would be either the part or the whole because it's a whole number. Your percent is obviously going to become your percent over here. And basically what you're doing with your percent is you're writing it as a fraction. We know that percent means out of 100, so that's why our fraction looks like a percent, or the number that makes up the percent, over 100. So if we go ahead and work through this problem, we're going to see that we're going to replace the part, and I'm going to erase the whole as well as the percent. Your 100 will always stay there. It's always a constant. It's always going to be in this equation. If we take a look, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to move the percent and just take the number 10 and write it over 100. And then I'm going to look at 5. It says 5 is 10% of what number? 5 is actually making up the part, because this what number over here is making up your whole, or the total. We don't know the total amount right now because 5 is 10% of what whole number. So I'm going to actually put the 5 on the top of our equation, and I'm going to leave the bottom blank. I like to draw a box because that helps me know that I'm filling in this information and this is what I'm finding. I'm now going to look at this problem right here. And for most of us, hopefully all of us, we can see that this looks like an equivalent ratio or an equivalent fraction. So now I need to think about 5 and 10. How would I go from 10 to 5? Well, I know I'm going to have to divide because my number is getting smaller. What would I divide into 10 to get to 5? I would divide it by 2. Same thing down here, because whatever I do to the top or the bottom, I have to do to the top or the bottom. So I have to make sure I'm doing the same operation on both top and bottom. So because I divided by 2 on the top, I'm now going to divide by 2 on the bottom. 100 divided by 2 is 50. So I know that 5 is 10% of 50. Let's take a look at our next example. If we take a look at our next example, once again, we're going to set up our proportion, and we're going to see that 6 is our part. So I'm going to go ahead and write 6 on the top. I don't know what the number is because that's what I'm finding. I know that my other side of my equation is going to be 25 over 100. And now I'm going to look at 25 going to 6. So if we look at 25 going to 6, I know I'm going to need to divide. In order to figure out what I'm dividing by, I need to do 25 divided by 6 on my calculator. When I do 25 divided by 6, I get 4.16 repeating. Now I have to do the same thing with 100. I have to divide by 4.16 repeating. However, in order to get a more accurate answer, this is what I would like you to type in on the calculator. 100 divided by 4.16666 and so on. Okay, so put about, 6 or 7 sixes and then hit your equal sign. The reason why we type in as many sixes as we can is because that's going to get us a more accurate answer. When I get my final answer, I get 24. So I should know that 6 is 25% of 24. We're going to look at one more example together before you guys try this on your own. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So 12 is my part. I don't know my whole. 75 over 100. So I'm going to go ahead and look at 75 to 12. I know once again I'm dividing. So on my calculator, I'm typing in 75 divided by 12. You should be doing the same thing. I know that I'm dividing by 6.25. So I'm going to do the same thing to 100. I'm going to divide by 6.25. Once again, typing that in on my calculator, and I get an answer of 16. So 12 is 75% of 16. All right, I want you to try this example on your own. Once again, set up your proportion. Remember, this will always have 100 on the bottom, and make sure you're filling in your part and your percent, and then this is what you're finding. You're finding the what number or the whole. As you can see, if you look at my screen, I ended up dividing by 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom to get me a final answer of 50. So a few things to remember is mainly the equation that is written on the screen, and we're going to be practicing with that, but remembering that part over whole is equal to your percent over 100. Remember, this is what we call a percent proportion, which is the same thing as an equivalent ratio or an equivalent fraction.